Welcome to Stories from the Woo. I'm your host, Ambitious Angelo, and today we're shining a spotlight on one of the most promising emerging talents coming from the Worcester Boys and Girls Club boxing program, Jamaine Ortiz. This is where Jamaine Ortiz found his passion, his purpose, his sanctuary. But Ortiz's journey isn't just about boxing. It's a tale of overcoming adversity, defying odds, and making the most of every opportunity. Growing up in a tough neighborhood, Ortiz could have easily fallen victim to his surroundings. Instead, he chose to lace up his gloves and fight for a better future. So join us as we step into the ring with Jamaine Ortiz, hear about his triumphs, his struggles, his dreams, and discover the true power of the human spirit. This is Stories from the Woo. Welcome to Stories from the Woo. I am your host, Ambitious Angelo. Today we are at Havana Nights with the People's Champ himself, the technician, Jamaine Ortiz. Welcome to Stories from the Woo, brother. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your time, man. And I'm looking forward to diving into your story, brother.
No, thank you for having me, and I'm happy to be here to share it.
Talk to me, how did you get to Worcester? What, like, early childhood? Tell me, ages like 0 to first grade, let's talk about that.
So I was born and raised in Worcester. My mother was an immigrant. She came from the Dominican Republic.
¿De qué parte?
San Francisco de Macorís.
Okay.
And my father, he's Puerto Rican, so he can just come to the U.S. no problem. But he was born and raised out there, came here in his late 20s. And what can I say? Grew up on Beacon Street.
Okay.
Remember when I was young? Tacoma with my father. I kept going back and forth because my parents split up when I was pretty young, about, I'll say 4 years old. They got divorced.
What stands out in that time period?
Okay.
What do you remember? So
the highlights that I remember actually living on Beacon Street was I used to go to the corner store on Main Street. They're still there. And I used to always steal candy. I would come back with a bag of just candy out my pockets. A young hustler at an early age, because I used to try to make lean bay and start selling it to everybody around neighborhood. And I'm 4 or 5 at the time, but that's what I did. When I lived on Beacon Street, I took my mother's car.
How old were you?
I was 4 or 5 years old. No, I wasn't older than 5 years old.
Really?
And no keys, on a little decline hill. Put the car in neutral, just went back, hit the fire hydrant. Little things like that. So I was a little delinquent at a young age.
Delincuente, como dijimos.
Yeah, delincuente. And this is a funny thing, que my family, todo el mundo me llamaba un delincuente tanto. They all called me a delincuente, or delinquent so much. I didn't know what it meant at the time. I didn't know what it was. I just thought it was my nickname. That was the word I heard so much. I didn't even hear my name Jamaine. I just heard delincuente.
Really?
I thought that was my nickname until I got older and I figured out what it meant. I'm like, oh, damn, that's foul. That's foul.
That's
but
foul,
yeah, it's how they viewed me at the time.
That's right. And it's very important than what you call yourself or what you allow other people to call you. One of the reasons why I call myself Ambitious Angelo is not because of anybody else or what I want people to think or whatever. It's for me. It's like a daily affirmation for me. Because just like you, growing up, there's so many labels that people throw at you, right? Where you don't fit in the mold or whatever the case may be, and then you're difficult to deal with or whatever. So they start labeling you certain things or whatever. And I wanted to reject all of that, and I wanted to stay true to who I knew I was. And that's where the name Ambitious Angelo actually came from. But yeah, those names that you call yourselves, definitely play an effect in your subconscious.
Yeah, the tongue speaks life and death.
That's right.
So you gotta be careful. I'm so glad that I didn't know what it meant because it maybe at that young age, if I knew exactly what they were trying to say to me and call me, who knows if that would have just stayed through with me throughout history, you know, in the sense of who I actually became as an adult. But luckily it didn't.
Yeah. So you're going back and forth with dad in Tacoma, mom on Beacon Street. Talk to me about like your first memories of school, like elementary school. What was
Okay.
that experience like? Where did you go?
Elementary school. I went to 6 elementary schools in 6 years. You know, elementary is up to 6th grade. But I went to Lincoln Street when I lived with my father. And then I went to Vernon Hill because my mother, we moved to Vernon. So I kept going back and forth. My father moved to Florida, probably like when I was in 1st grade. So then I went to school in Florida, came back, moved with my mom, went to Claremont for probably like half a year or something like that. Came back to Vernon Hill, went to Grafton Street School. My mom moved again. From there, then I went to Abbey Kelly. I think that was about it.
Okay.
I think that was about it.
Do you have any friends that you made in that time frame that you still maybe stay in contact with, or anybody that
Actually, I do.
stands out?
Actually, most of my friends that I have now are
Yeah.
from early childhood. So my best friend, Gilberto, we lived in the same house in the same triple decker, and he's been my best friend ever since. Same school. I was probably 6, 7 years old when I met him. Still my best friend till this day. Christian, as we know, Bones, another kid I met at Vernon Hill, probably it was like 1st, 2nd grade around there. Still friends with him to this day. This other kid named Troy Merchant, big fan of mine. He's always going to all my fights and stuff like that from elementary school, Vernon Hill.
What about any teachers? Do you have any teachers that were like good to you, had a positive influence?
No,
like,
I don't remember.
or did they all call you delincuente too?
No. I don't remember none of my teachers. I just probably remember like 2 teachers in high school.
Yeah.
But I was sleeping most of the time. I was sleeping. I don't
In high
remember.
school?
In elementary, middle, throughout my entire school career.
Really?
I was sleeping.
Okay.
I was probably sleeping.
How important it is to you nowadays? Like, I know you're on ESPN, you're on these global platforms. So now, you know, I see people tweeting you and all that, famous people and all that. But how important is it to you still have that connection to those friends that grew up with you, going to elementary school and stuff like that? How important is that to you these days?
I think it's vital because people from my early childhood, they know who I am. They've been there while I was suffering. They've been there in my downs. They've been there when I was a little shit, un delincuente, when I didn't have nothing. So they can actually see the come up. They was with me there. And I think it's very important because we share something that other people that I meet later on in life can't relate to me. They probably didn't come from where I came from.
Sure.
They didn't see the streets where I was at. They didn't see the dark alleys and how I lived. So it's tough to connect.
Yeah.
And it's funny because a lot of times we see that with professional athletes where they make it, but then they tend to come back where they grew up. And then sometimes the influence is very bad and they just keep on, they go down where it's like, no, you got to leave certain people and go up. Where versus I've never had that issue. My friends always helped me get to the top. They never really held me back. They never held me down, thankfully. So that's why I'm blessed to have the friends I have. And that's why Worcester is also important to me because it's never made me feel like they was holding me down, holding me back, much really. So.
Who's somebody that maybe you've been able to connect with or like shouted you out or gave you commented on it, like somebody that was like, oh my God, this person knows who I am?
I'll say the first time would probably be Nicky Jam.
Nicky Jam?
Nicky Jam. The first time. I forgot what it was. I think it was my fight after the Tyson undercard, I believe. He followed me. He's from Massachusetts.
Yeah.
From
I didn't know that. He's actually from Lawrence. They just named, I think, a street after him or something out there.
You know, like me, mixed Dominican, Puerto Rican. So we was able to relate.
That's what's up.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
There's been some other people too, but I'll say that was the first one where I was like, oh, wow.
That's what's up.
You know?
That's what's up, man. All right, guys, we're going to take a break here. Here's a word from our sponsors. Thank you to everybody who has helped make Stories from the Woo possible. Here's a word from our sponsors, and we'll be right back. All right, guys, welcome back from our break. We have our first entree coming up here at Havana Nights, okay? So come on over here, chef. Let us know what we're eating here.
All right, so I got a couple of snacks for you. These are some things we're doing special this week. This is a shrimp ceviche style salad. So it's a nice fresh shrimp that's been poached with peppers and onions, scallions, cilantro. It's got like a Cuban version of leche de tigre, which is what they make in Peru for their ceviche. So tomatoes and lime juice, and then some mariquitas coming out, kind of look like a flour a little bit. And then these are what we call culito de pan, so butter the bread. We bake our own bread in-house, Cuban bread, about 250 rolls a week. We take the ends and we try to do something special with it every week. This week, really simple: cream cheese, guava paste, just a simple snack. This is like what you would see people in Cuba eating all the time for breakfast with coffee, for like a little snack. So a little something simple for you guys to enjoy.
Awesome. Thank you so much, chef.
All right, guys. Thank you.
All right, Jamaine, which one do you want to try first? The guava and cheese culitos or the ceviche, the shrimp ceviche?
I'm gonna try the ceviche.
All right, you do that. I'm gonna jump in over here. These are always my favorite when you go to the baby showers with the Ritz crackers, you know what I'm saying? But I never had it with the actual Cuban bread. So this is a little twist that I'm actually really excited to taste.
Freshly baked bread too, right?
Damn.
I love ceviche.
The bread really gives it that extra next level, you know what I'm saying? Because a Ritz cracker does the job, but the flakiness and stuff of the Cuban bread that is made here in-house takes it to the next level. So next time you guys are in here, make sure you stop in and ask for the guava and cheese culitos de pan.
So this got a nice hint of spice to it. This is just very classic. I'm surprised they made it real good. They made it really good. I don't think there's much places in Worcester that you're gonna get something nicely decorated and pay attention to the detail as this.
That's one of the things that I love about coming here to Havana. Every time I get a dish, either Julio or Kevin or some of the guys here, they'll come in and they'll give me this immaculate description of what I'm eating. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like, it makes you feel like, oh wow, like it's not just what I thought it was. You know, they really care about the food, the taste and the flavors. And that's one of the things that I love about here, because growing up in Miami and being, in that Cuban culture and stuff, this kind of stuff to me was an everyday thing, so to be able to actually live right across the street from this place, so I'm in here frequently, but to be able to connect, I don't have to take a flight to Miami no more to go get some authentic Cuban food. We got it right here, Park Ave, Worcester, Massachusetts. So let's pick up where we left off, Jamaine. So we were in elementary school, you were a little delincuente. Talk to me about middle and high school. What was that experience like?
Ending elementary, like 6th grade, was where I'll say I started getting more into the streets. I found my first weed bag and just got it, sold it. Had a couple friends that I knew, obviously older than me. I was like, put me on, and started selling weed in middle school.
How old were you?
Started like in 6th grade.
6th grade, okay.
7th grade. Actually, a couple of my friends got expelled because they got caught doing it. It spiraled from there. 7th grade, what happened? I was in Abbey Kelly. 8th grade, I went to Forest Grove. And I was actually stayed a lot with my aunt on Elm Street.
Okay.
You know Wendell is, her mom. So stayed a lot with her just because my mom, she moved to Tatnick. She bought a house in Tatnick. And it was just always fun. I didn't like being like away from the city. Like I told you, even like being in Florida and Orlando, I didn't like it because I like being outside. I like being in the streets. I like being close to the city. And being on Pleasant Street right there on Seaver, in the Seaver projects, it was close to what I felt was comfortable.
Okay. So what made you want to sell weed? Like, was it just a curiosity thing? Was it like, let me see if I could get this off? Was it like, mom was struggling to pay bills, I got to do what I got to do? Like, what was your mindset back then?
It was just always me. Like I told you, I was a hustler from a young age. I was like, at a young age, like I would steal from like stores, candies, clothes, whatever. But then I'm like, all right, I don't really like stealing, but if I could just make my own money to buy stuff, a lot better.
Okay.
And that was always my method. And when I was young, I would always find a way to make money. Like if it was trading games or stealing a system and trading, like I've always found a way from a young age to do things like that. So this was just another pathway, and again, the influence around me, the culture was that. The music I listened to, the movies I watched, the older people that I would quote unquote look up to. That's what they were doing. And it was just something that I wanted to provide for my own, you know? So it was an easy outlet. And when you're good at something, I think you rise pretty quickly. And
So did you got caught in school?
No, I never got
So what
caught.
made you want to stop that? What made you like, all right, that's it, I'm good?
Well, that really, going into, fast forward a little bit to my freshman year,
Yeah.
my mother went to prison. And when my mother went to prison, my father came from Florida. He was like, came to pick me and my little brother up. Like, you coming with me to Florida? I'm like, I'm not going with you. I got my boxing career here. I already lived with you in Florida before. I know you're not gonna bring me to the gym every day. So I'm staying here. So he took my brother and I stayed, and I was alone in the sense I stayed with my aunt, I stayed with my best friend, I stayed with other people. I was just kind of going from house to house to house. And being a young adolescent, 14 years old, no mom, father's in a different state, what you're gonna do? You're gonna try to survive, you're gonna wanna make money. That's the age where you start experimenting a lot as well. And I went from selling weed in 8th grade to then started selling crack, selling dope. And from there, it really spiraled. I wasn't going to school no more.
This is still at 14.
Freshman year.
Wow.
Yeah. I wasn't really going to school. And then all my friends that were at South, I'm like, you know what? I want to go to South. So sophomore year, I went to South High, and everything from there just went downhill. I was going to school drunk every morning. I was literally having like vodka in a water bottle for breakfast. Getting high. It wasn't good. And shortly after, within 2 months, I got expelled. I got into a fight. Some little petty gang-related stuff. Court system. All this, you know, my mother's not here. My father's in a different state. Still going house to house. And that's when I started to pick things up a little bit. But I was still dealing in the streets. And my education actually came in when I got kicked out, because I went to Fanning and I seen the kids, they didn't want to learn. You ever seen that movie Freedom Fighters?
Yep.
Freedom Riders.
Yep.
It was like that. Just like that. Like kids on desks, people throwing things, not listening to the teacher. It was literally like that. Just going to the hallway, doing whatever you want. The kids were in control of the school. I'm like, this is crazy. They're not gonna learn nothing. I'm not gonna learn nothing. I'm not gonna graduate not knowing, like I gotta learn something. So I applied myself, and after I finished that year doing what I had to do, my court case got closed. I went back to Doherty, applied myself, and got into honors and really just started going down the right path, educationally, but still dealing in the street. That never really stopped. It was just a way to maintain. By the time I ended up stopping everything was kind of like a revelation from God. A couple of times it was now going more than just dealing. Now it just kept leveling it up, getting more dangerous, making more trips, getting close calls. And I had a revelation from God, and it was like, all right, now it's time to stop and just focus on boxing. And the thing is, throughout all this, I've never stopped boxing.
Okay. So talk to me. Let's get back to boxing. How did you get introduced into boxing?
I growing up in the valley. My dad, I always used to fight. So it was just something that was normal. Like in the morning, before school, waiting at the bus stop, or after school, it's just like routine. It's like we already know shit's about to go down. We get into a fight. Little kids, they push one into another. They talk crap, and it's part of it.
Okay.
So I was always getting into fights. But one day I came home with a bloody nose, and my dad, his friend, he had some boxing gloves in his car. He lined up like 8, 9 kids from the valley, made me fight every single one of them.
Your boxing gloves.
With boxing gloves.
Okay.
He made me fight every single one of them. And my mom signed me up to the Boys and Girls Club. My dad got my boxing license. And I just started training, started fighting. And the rest is history.
Okay. So you go to the Boys and Girls Club, and then you start training in there.
Yeah.
Okay. Who's training you there?
Carlos Garcia.
Carlos Garcia.
Carlos Garcia.
Okay. So how old were you when you started getting trained by Carlos?
I gotta say I was 7 years old.
7.
7 years old.
Wow. 7. Okay. So you started at 7. Your life starts getting a little messy and stuff. It gets derailed a little bit going through middle school, and then you get to high school. And then when do you actually start taking boxing serious? And you're like, this is gonna be my path out, my escape. This is my way out. This is gonna be my way.
To be honest, I've never looked at boxing like that.
Really?
I never really did. Because as you say, middle school, high school, it went more down because obviously it got older. But even as a young kid, I was still always in the street somewhere, somehow. You know, I would run away from home. I would be out late at night. I would walk from Vernon Hill to where the old Boys and Girls Club was, Ionic Ave, in front of where Gala is now. 9 o'clock at night. I had long hair. Everybody thought I was a girl, real short. But the cops would literally pick me up walking down the tunnel in Kelly Square and bring me home. That was like a routine thing that police officers would just bring me home because they didn't want to see me walking, because obviously it's dangerous, late at night. I'm only 7, 8 years old.
Wow.
Doing this, walking. But a lot of times strangers would pick me up, bring me home, and I wouldn't even know nobody, and I was scared to get in the car. And I'd be like, call my mom. She was like, okay. I'm like, this woman crazy. How are you gonna let some random stranger you don't even know bring me home? Yeah. But that's how I grew up. Like I said, it's always in the street, pool hopping every night. So throughout all of this and the success of my boxing career and these accomplishments I get at the Boys and Girls Club, I always felt like I lived 2 different lives, because nobody really knew when I was at the Boys and Girls Club or at school the life I lived outside.
Yeah, yeah.
They didn't know what I was doing, and they didn't know if I was, breaking into a house, breaking into a school, going pool hopping, who I'm robbed. They didn't know none of that.
Yeah.
It was 2 different lives. So it was pretty much that my entire life.
Okay.
I lived 2 different lives. Because even as an adolescent, and I was going through the questions, they knew I got into trouble because I went to court and I had people helping me out in that process, but they still didn't know exactly what I'm telling you now. It was all hush. Nobody in school knew. I didn't associate with people for them to know what I was doing.
Yeah. Who introduced you to like your faith? Who was the influence that gave you that faith background?
I would say I've always had the faith
Yeah.
myself from early on. So neither of my parents, I would say they're religious.
Okay.
Neither of them ever brought me to church. But when I was young, I would say about like 4 or 5 years old, I've had my own relationship with God.
Okay.
Not something that somebody else had to teach me of. And it would always be strangers that I've come across in the past, or like other people, never a direct family that would throw some introductions into God or into the Bible, or maybe pick me up and bring me to church on a Wednesday and a Sunday. And through that, faith got built up. But Carlos Garcia was definitely one of the guys who got me stronger, because as much as he taught me about boxing, he taught me more about faith and about life. He would actually bring me to church with him on Saturdays, because we would go to the Seventh-day Adventist church and they observed the Sabbath. I had to believe in God because I was always alone and I was scared. As a little boy, I'm telling you, as much as it may seem like I was tough, I was scared. And the only thing that was there to protect me was God. And that's the only person I could rely on, only person I could trust.
Yeah. Especially, I grew up similarly where your parents might not necessarily be the most consistent figure in your life or the best influence or whatever the case may be, but having those moments where you're alone or you are scared and the only thing that or even it comes from inside or whatever is like calling out to God and being able to have him like, okay, God, I don't know what's going on in my world or where my parents are or what's happening in my life, but I know that you're still in control and that you still have a watchful eye on me and that you're going to provide for me. And, so I'm very thankful as well for those people who God used to bridge those gaps. People who taught me how to drive or teach me how to shave or how to make a tie or, when my parents weren't there. So talk to me a little bit about your parents. So your mom goes to prison when you're 14. How long is she in prison for? And
Yeah, so she went to prison for about a year,
okay.
and she gets out mid-November. My father comes, brings my brother back home, goes back to Florida, and he passes away in May.
Wow.
So that was the dynamic of that.
Was it like health related?
Health
Okay.
related. He's always had health problems. Drugs in the past, stuff like that. So went to the funeral. I went with my sister. Things normal, but I've got to appreciate my father, sadly, after he passed away. Because my father always wanted to keep me on the straight path. He was very a strict parent, a disciplinarian. But a lot of times we don't get to see that when we're the ones being punished and being disciplined at the moment, especially being young. And after actually having my own daughter, I got to see what he wanted for me was always the best.
That's powerful, man. That's powerful. Yeah. And you already had one parent basically be absent because they're in the penitentiary, and then they get out, and then the other parent that you had that was out of state and all that. Now that person is permanently, gone.
Yeah.
So how did you feel about that? That's
to be honest, I'm not a person who ever really felt too much sympathy or empathy. I never cried. I remember my brother called me, told me I was just getting out of work. I was 15. I just turned 15. I was working at a billing and coding company right there in downtown. One of them building right next to the Hanover Theater.
Okay.
But I've never cried. I just took that one day and just kind of absorbed everything that was happening and kept it pushing. Kept it pushing.
Because he was already kind of absent in a sense in your life and
like
stuff.
Mainly I spent every summer with him.
Yeah.
He would always call me. He would always send me stuff. But at the time, I've never really liked spending much time with him anyways, because it was always a disciplinary action. Usually I always seen him as like strict, mean. I can't go out. I can't do this. So it's not like I missed him too much.
Has that dynamic, for the good and bad, right? How has that played a part in you being a dad now?
Oh, a big role, because because I grew up like feeling like I hated my dad, right? Because I just always wanted to be free. And then me with my daughter, I see myself being like my dad a lot of times. And then so I think, well, I don't want her to hate me how I hated my dad, So I try to find a medium balance on how I can discipline her, still be strict and raise her to be the woman I want her to be without being too far across the line. I try to find a medium balance, especially she's my kid as well. So I know sometimes maybe we could bump heads because we tend to be just like our parents some way, somehow. Yeah. My mom used to tell me that when I was a kid. I never understand it. She's like, you're just like your father. And I didn't understand it, As I got older, I got to understand it. But it helps me understand different perspectives. I grew up in two different households where my mom gave me all the freedom in the world, and my father didn't give me no freedom. And I try to find a happy medium. So it's always a work in progress because every kid is different.
Absolutely.
Their character influences the way they are receptive to what you tell them is different. So it's a work in progress always.
Awesome. Well, let's leave it right there. We're going to take a short break. We'll be right back with more from Jamaine Ortiz, the technician, and more stories from the Woo here at Havana Nights. All right, guys, and we're back. Now it's time for our main entrees. Chef Kev, come on over here. Show me what we got going on over here.
Yeah, here, my friend.
Ooh.
Your camarones enchilados.
Thank you.
So served real simple, real classic. We got your frijole negra. So simple Cuban black beans. They are vegan. That's how we've always made them. We got some white rice there, classic. Ropa vieja, that means old clothes in English. So that's shredded beef, peppers, onions, tomato puree, all cooked down, braised till it's nice and soft and looks like shredded old clothes. You know, that's the whole thing there. And then the camarones enchilados, so that's just shrimp that's kind of sauteed in a sofrito. So sofrito is kind of the base of like most Cuban food and a lot of like Caribbean Latin food. Again, tomatoes, peppers, onions, garlic, all cooked down with that shrimp. So nice and light, nice and healthy. Most Cuban food is gluten-free too, so something to think about. But yeah.
Awesome.
Thanks, guys.
It smells amazing. It really does. So, how long does it take to actually make the ropa vieja?
Yeah, so we take inside round. That's the cut that we use pretty much exclusively in Cuban food. We'll cut it down into masitas or chunks, and then we'll actually pressure cook it. So pressure cooking is a big thing in Cuban cuisine. When communist Russia was really involved in Cuba, pressure cooking was a big thing over there. So they sent a ton of them over to Cuba, and it like built out the essence of Cuban cooking. All the beans are pressure cooked, the beef, the pork, like just to cook it quickly, make it nice and tender and consistent, and like even from like the cuts of meat that we use, like it really allows for that consistency.
Oh, I'm excited. This looks amazing. I might have to try one of your shrimps over there. So, you know what I'm saying? You could try some of this beef. Chef, thank you so much. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Enjoy, guys.
I don't know about you, but I came with an appetite. All right, I cannot wait to dive into this food.
Buen provecho.
Buen provecho, como decimos ahí, ¿verdad? No, it's funny growing up in Miami. I actually didn't like black beans.
No?
Because I was so used to the kidney beans, the pink beans, and stuff like that. That it was like, black beans? That doesn't even look good. But I'm so glad that
Actually, black beans are my favorite.
Yeah?
Yeah. Out of all beans.
I do not like peppers. But I will tell you what. In this, I'll eat peppers all day. Because the savory of the meat with the sweetness of the peppers is just a lethal combination. All right?
Here, you gotta try the shrimp.
Ooh.
You gotta try the shrimp.
Yes.
You gotta try the shrimp.
Enchilado. Oh, yeah, let's go. Hold up. What?
Very tasty. Very flavorful.
The consistency, it doesn't even taste like shrimp. It doesn't even feel like shrimp. It feels like a shredded chicken or something of some sort. Like, that's why I tried it the first time. I was like, wait a minute, that wasn't shrimp. Then I tried it again. I was like, oh,
Now that you say that, you're right. And that's probably what he said. Pressure cooker. I don't think they put the shrimp in the pressure cooker, but it's very soft and delicate.
Dive in if you want to try some of this ropa vieja here.
Let me see.
It's one of my go-tos. This and the Cuban sandwich. You cannot go wrong with either one of those.
We said this was shredded beef.
Shredded beef with peppers and onions.
It does taste good.
Wow. Shout out to the chef. You guys, thank you so much for having us here. Thank you for the amazing food. I cannot wait to be able to finish tearing this up. But before we finish up our food, let's finish up telling your story, Jamaine. So we left off. You were living these two lives, these double lives. One life didn't know about the other, and the other didn't know about, you're getting older. Things are getting real. Where was that moment that you said, I have to go with boxing and I have to leave this old life behind?
I would say probably by the time I graduated high school.
Okay. What year is this?
I graduated in 2014.
2014. Okay.
By the time I graduated high school, it was weird, because throughout this, I'm getting awards, accomplishments in high school from the Boys and Girls Club, from high school for being a leader, for being an outstanding this, and that. But that's, during the day. At nighttime is a different story.
So you're like the Batman, but reverse. So, yeah, okay.
But yeah, I left it, thank God, and I turned professional in 2016. My daughter was born in 2016. And I went all in. I went to college, was going to college, was working in the union. And
what's your trade?
Carpentry.
Carpentry. Okay, how did you get into that?
So my stepdad at the time, my mom's boyfriend, he was a contractor. So growing up, I've always seen him build things around the house. My mom was always updating her house. And I caught an interest to it. When I was in high school, I was more interested in architecture. And actually, when I was going to school, I wanted to go be an engineer. And then I found a pathway to do carpentry. I'm like, I want to not only be smart behind the desk, but I actually want to know what's going on in the field, right? I thought that would actually give me more skills to be a better engineer.
Okay.
And I just got stuck in it. I liked it. I enjoyed it. I love going to different job sites, doing something different every day, learning new things.
So you have all these options ahead of you. Was it someone that pushed you into the boxing direction to like really go hard on that? Or was it like by default kind of thing?
It was, so I've never really seen myself going professional in boxing. As weird as that may sound, I never said like my dream goal is to be world champion and to go pro. I've always just had a dream of going to the Olympics and getting a medal. That was always my goal. So once I fell short of that in 2015, because the Olympics were in 2016, and the Olympic trials were in 2015, I fell short, lost in the semifinals. I was like, all right, so I'm going to have to wait another 4 years and try again. And then there's what people talking about, why don't you just turn pro? At the time in the amateurs too, I was fighting without a headgear. Amateurs usually fight with a headgear, but when I was 15, 16, they changed that rule and the elite fighters were fighting without a headgear. The Olympics were fighting without a headgear. So a lot of people were complaining at the time thinking, if you're going to fight without a headgear, might as well just turn professional. So I had my other coach at the time, Rocky Gonzalez, another advisor who sadly passed away, Frank Rohasic, and they were trying to give me advice and guide me to turn pro, see what options were out there. And one thing led to another. I'm like, they got a point, why keep fighting without headgear? And I was like, you know what? I'll turn pro.
So you go pro in what year?
2016.
16. How did it feel going to your first pro fight?
A little bit nervous.
Yeah.
I was a little bit nervous. Not as nervous as one would expect to be.
Yeah.
Got a little bit. But it was cool because it was like the first time I've had family come. Because throughout my amateur career, my family never came to a fight. My mom never really came to a fight. She came to a couple that were at the Boys and Girls Club.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I never had nobody from my circle ever attend to a fight. This was the first time that people came out to see me. So I would say that was more nervous, just being able to perform in front of family and friends. And got a first round knockout. And the rest is, just kept climbing up the ranks.
Now, so that was 2016. Now 2023. You're how many fights in now?
I'm 19 fights in.
19 fights in. Your record is
17 wins, 1 loss, 1 draw.
1 draw. Okay. I mean, we all know that that 1 loss was recent. You know, it wasn't to just anybody. You know what I'm saying? So, that was the one at Madison Square Garden, right? So that was. Talk to me about that, because I feel like we all celebrate wins, right? But we learn so much from our losses. What did you learn from fighting? I'm always mess up how to say his last name.
Vasily Lomachenko.
Lomachenko. What was something from that loss that you were able to walk away from with?
I was just blessed for the opportunity. It was my first 12-round fight, so being able to have that as an experience and under my belt was good. It's tough because in my head I always knew I could beat him. I believed I was going to beat him. I believed that I won still after the fight. And just the politics and the world of boxing and business of boxing, and just you walk away and like, how can I adjust and move with the business of boxing and use that to my benefit? Really.
Talking about the business of boxing, right? I just watched this weekend some fights that happened in the UK. I don't know if you got to catch any of this, but you know, like, what do you think about the YouTube boxers, like the Logan and Jake Paul brothers and KSI and them? What do you think about that and the business of boxing as a whole? Like this conversion that we're having between social media influencers and stars now getting in the ring.
I'm not gonna lie, man. Obviously, them influencers have brought more attention to boxing, more attention to the regular fans, to the fans who were never really paid attention to boxing. So it brings that. It brings more, I would say, revenue to the sport, which is good. But are they real fighters? No. Now, aside from the other YouTubers and influence boxers, I gotta give Jake Paul his credit. He's a person who started out that way, who people criticized. But if a person works hard and consistent and trains long enough, it's never too late to start in boxing. Just because he wasn't starting early or whatever, and maybe some people just hate him because he's getting paid a lot of money to do what he's doing. But he's just using his platforms, and as anyone should and will use their platforms if they had the same opportunity. And he tried to face a real boxer in Tommy Fury. He came up short, but you got to give him the fact that he's not trying to just fight other YouTubers, but he's calling out a lot of the UFC fighters. And UFC fighters are real fighters. They know how to fight.
What if one of the Paul brothers calls you out, sends you a DM or something?
Easy fight. Easy fight.
You'll do it?
Of course. If they want to fight, I'll fight anybody. I don't care who it is. If somebody's calling me out, I'm never going to turn nothing down. I'm never going to turn down a fight.
Okay.
Never.
Hey, Paul brothers, I don't know.
Just so y'all know, anybody ever say my name, I'm never turning down a fight. Anybody can get it. I will fight any of y'all. I don't care if you're a YouTuber, influencer, whatever it is. Don't you I dare you to say my name. Let me say it like that because I need a fight. I'm hungry. I'm hungry.
Come on.
Forget this food. I want one of y'all on my plate right now.
Let's go.
That's how I'm feeling.
Let's go. I love that. I love that. So, talking about that, who would you want to fight? Because I seen some Twitter stuff. I seen some comments after your last fight and all that. You know what I'm saying? So, who do you have your eyes on next that you would like to fight?
Oh man, I want all the big fights. So just Shakur Stevenson, Teofimo Lopez, Devin Haney, Tank, Ryan Garcia, any of the big names in the lightweight division, as I'm a top fighter in the lightweight division and super lightweight division. I want all of them, any of them, in order.
Just line them up, right?
Just line them up.
Same day. It's all right. Go ahead.
At the end of the day, I'm gonna fight them all.
Yeah.
It's not who's coming first and just bring them down one by one, because that's what's gonna happen.
That's it.
At the end of the day, I'm in the sport to create legacy, to be world champion, 2 division world champion, multi-time world champion, and to be remembered. At the end of the day, I'm not just doing this for clout. I'm not just doing this for the money. I'm doing this to be one of the best ever, and especially talking about stories from the Wu, is to be the first born and raised kid from Worcester to be world champion, because we never had that before. And the next to be from Massachusetts, because the last world champion we had from Massachusetts was John Ruiz back in, I don't know, 2001 or 06, one of those years. And prior to that was Rocky Marciano, which everybody knows Rocky Marciano as one of the great heavyweights of all time. And that was back in the old days, black and white television. So I'm here to make history.
We get to watch you from an outside perspective, right? Where we see you on TV or we see you on your Instagram and you're training, what you put out there, right? But to really go behind the scenes and see where you're, you know, where you've come from, where you've been through, and where you're going. That's what I'm most excited about, is to see where you're headed and where you're going. Because we're both real estate agents and stuff, so I know that as entrepreneurs, you know, we have a platform and certain things that make us money, but like Bad Bunny just said in his new album, it's not about making money, it's how you multiply it that counts, right? So let's transition a little bit past this, where we're talking about boxing, and let's talk about your entrepreneurship journey and being a real estate agent and a real estate investor.
Oh yeah, so as you know, I transferred, right? I went in to school to try to be an engineer, got into carpentry, was working hands-on labor, and then I wanted to work smarter. I wanted to be able to continue my boxing career without having to work a regular job, because I wanted to be all in. And it's hard to be all into something when you have another job to attend to. So with the grace of God, I was able to leave my job and be self-sufficient. And that was always my goal when I turned professional in boxing, was to be self-sufficient, where I didn't need a manager, I didn't need a job, I can sustain myself. And that came through investing into my first 3-decker and be able to live there and create some income for myself, and just having things where I can manage my own time, and then with my boxing. And that's how I was able to leave the carpentry work and just focus on boxing. And then from there, I wanted to still do something on the side, because I'm a person who loves to always be doing something. So I transferred into real estate, got my license, gave that a shot in the sense of trying to figure out my way on how I can create a second business on selling homes, helping people buy homes. But in that aspect, I got a great mentor, Charbel, you know who he is, and started investing into properties with him and learning the project management side and how to start new construction. So that's where I kind of been at the past couple months, well, I'll say past year, year and a half, is investing into new construction, developments, and managing these projects from the ground up and doing that.
That's awesome, man. One, we have a dire need here in the city of Worcester for housing. So since COVID and all of that, building supplies and materials and just the process of building a house, it's gotten expensive and time consuming and stuff. But we desperately need new housing in the city of Worcester. So you saw an opportunity, and not just an opportunity, you were able to collaborate with someone to be able to make this stuff happen, right? One of my favorite quotes that I've seen is people at the top don't compete, they collaborate.
Yes.
They work together. You know what I'm saying? So it's not that, oh, well, here, I got a secret playbook I can't share with you. Or at the top, it's like, bro, we all got opportunities up here. So why am I going to, you know, either cut you out the deal, or why not share the information that I have? Because one day you might have some kind of experience or some kind of connection or something that I might need one day, you know? So
you can't compete. You have to collaborate, share, and that's how we grow. One thing that I've always had in my head since young was, I'm not competing with nobody in Worcester as the Worcester's best boxer. Never has that ever crossed my mind. I was always trying to be the best in the world, and to this day, it's to be the best in the world, never to be the best in my area. So I think everybody should have that mindset on how they can be the best in the world, the best version of yourself. Forget even the world and the other people and who you trying to compete with, but always strive to be a better version of yourself, because if you compete against yourself, that person in the mirror, you never stop chasing.
That's
in a
right.
sense. You know, you always got room to grow.
That's right.
You'll always be working harder and harder and harder.
I love that. I love that, man. That's a great mentality to have, not just in business or in sports or anything, but just in life. You know, try to be better, 1% better than you were, you know, yesterday. And I love that you said that the only true opponent that we have is the man in the mirror.
Yeah.
That's it. It's the man in the mirror. You got to be better. You know yourself. You know your weaknesses. You know your strengths. You know what you need to work on. You know what you need help with. You know, so always strive for excellence. That's why I call myself Ambitious Angelo. I'm always being ambitious on how can I get better? How can I be the best at something? Or how can I, not just in business or in filmmaking or storytelling, or just how can I be a better son? How can I be a better father? How can I be a better dad? How can I be a better husband? Whatever the case may be, I just want to be a better person. So I'm glad to see that you share that mentality.
Yeah, that's
as
the
well.
same exact mentality. And I have this discussion every time. Better friend,
Mhm.
better brother, how you said better son, it's how can you be a better person every single day? Because all that correlates.
Yeah.
You being a better friend, a better brother, a better son, a better father is going to help you in business.
Mm.
You may not see it that way, but it does, because you're being a better person. People are going to see the character that you have. They're going to see how you walk. They're going to see how you talk. They're going to see how you carry yourself. And that all relates.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. So, can you give our viewers, maybe there's a kid out there right now that's going through some hard times, right? Where, for whatever reason, the cards that life dealt to him or her might not be fair, or it may not be the greatest hand, right? What would you say to this kid that is watching this? You know, that I said, put themselves in your shoes when you were 7, 8 years old, or 10 years old, 12 years old, maybe in high school or something. What would you say to somebody that's going down the wrong path?
Thoughts control everything. Be careful with your thoughts. Be careful with your energy. Control your thoughts. Control your energy. Dictate what you allow in. The boundaries that you set for yourself within your friends and your circle. That's very important. What you allow around you is very important. And you're in control of your future. Anything can happen. You can do what you dream of. Just set the vision, set the goal, and what wins is persistency. Being consistent is always the end. Is always the tool that's gonna get you to that place. It's what's gonna help you win. I was having a discussion. There's a lot of great talent, a lot of great things here, but people give up too quickly. They give up too easily. You gotta stay persistent. Persistent. You gotta keep going. Look, I'm 27 now. I've been a professional for what? Since 2016. 7 years. Still got a long way to go in what I want, but I had to stick to it. I know people who get discouraged because maybe they're not fighting on TV, or they're not getting paid what they want to get paid. But I went through that same struggle. I was fighting locally here at Twin River Casino. I was getting paid $1,000, $1,500 for my first fight. You know, it takes time. You just got to stick to it. And you got to have that belief in you that you're going to make it.
I love that, man. I love it. It's absolutely true. I mean, he who does not quit can't lose.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, man, regardless of what, if you have your eyes on the destination, it doesn't matter what route you take or how long it takes you to get there. The point is, one, that you get there, and two, don't be so focused on the destination that you forget about the journey. Because so many times I've seen, like, I've been so, oh, I want to do this, or I want to get, and I'm so focused on the goal that I forget it to really enjoy the journey. Like, there's times where it's like, I've been on movie sets, or I'm with Drake, like in the same room with Drake, and I'm like, bro, like, and it's those moments. It's like, even though that wasn't the goal, but here I am because I was in pursuit of my goal. And in here, our journey, you know, and you got to take those special moments, or whatever the case may be. Even just this, you know, this wasn't necessarily planned, but the way that it all worked out, it has worked out, and we're enjoying the moment that we are. We're enjoying the meal that we're having, the time, the conversations that we're having, man. So don't forget, keep your eyes on the destination, but be flexible on how you get there, and don't forget to enjoy the journey. All right.
Well, that's the most important thing for sure.
All right, brother. Well, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for your time. I know that you got to get on a plane here in a few days. You're going back to Dubai to go train. Last question before we leave. What is it about Worcester that brings you back why, haven't you moved to some other part of the country where maybe boxing training is more available or anything like that? Why are you still in Worcester?
I've traveled.
Mm-hmm.
I've have left to go in pursuit of finding better.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, a lot of people always think the grass is green on the other side, but I found that what makes me the best version of myself is what molded me into who I am today. And that is this city, that is my coach that is here. And I've gotten so far being here, not saying that I can go further being somewhere else, but which I've already tried. And I realized I'm best here. I got all the tools I need here. I got personal doctors. I got strength conditioning coach. I got massage therapists. I got the coaches. I got everything I need here that I've went out and tried to compare it to. And I know that's why I know I'm gonna be the best. I've seen what they have out there. They're not on my level. They're not doing what I'm doing. I have it here. The city has always treated me so good, man. No lie. I've never been one to down talk Worcester because I've always had great things to come from Worcester. Just the help that they give, just the support. I can't complain. I can't complain. I've been treated good here. So
that's it. Well, you guys keep showing love, keep showing up, stay connected, find out what's going on with Jamaine Ortiz. Jamaine, please let them know where they can follow you and stay connected with you.
Y'all can follow me on Instagram at Jamaine Ortiz. X is the new Twitter platform, which you can follow me there at Jamaine Ortiz R.
Got it. Jamaine Ortiz R on X, Jamaine Ortiz on Instagram.
Yes.
All right, champ. I can't wait to see you at your next fight, brother. Good luck.
Thank you.
No problem, man. This is Stories from the Woo. I am your host, Ambitious Angelo, and we're just here trying to tell stories from people from Worcester. There we have extraordinary talents and abilities and individuals who have poured their hearts and lives out for this community and have done incredible things here locally and on global stages like Jamaine Ortiz here. So stay tuned. We have another episode coming to you here shortly. Stories from the Woo. I'm your host, Ambitious Angelo, and we are out of here.